G'day, we're in the Hunter Valley, up the back of Muswellbrook, and we're going to explore all sorts of backtracks around this region because the funny thing is that this is almost the heartland of Australia in a whole lot of senses. This is one of the first places that was settled. There's been gold mining up here, there's been all sorts of things happening. It's fairly close to Sydney, and yet at the end of the day, there's so much country up here that people haven't seen. This one, episode 5, is going to take you through a whole lot of that. Looks to me like something's missing though, Gleno.
Yeah, there's no yapping going on. The Chihuahua's not here.
I haven't seen a stuffed dog either, so...
Maybe he's realised that out in the bush there's no fish.
Well, there wasn't any fish anywhere we were,
No,
really.
that's true.
Hey, Keno's got himself a job, a really serious job. A lot of people don't know that he's an elevator technician, a very senior elevator technician. So from what I understand, there's a whole lot of ups and downs in this new career.
Absolutely. But, you know, he is, like you said, at the top of his game, and I'm guessing that someone's stuck in a lift somewhere.
I'd imagine so. Lucky Keno. I'll tell you what, he's missing out this time though, because this country around here is absolutely beautiful.
Dead right, mate. Beautiful.
Come on, let's hop in our cars and get into it.
In this episode, we begin in the Upper Hunter region of New South Wales and follow some of the not so well travelled tracks across the Great Divide and up through the mid-north coast. Well, we started this trip at Muswellbrook, and then we headed into Bowman's, it's not Bowman's track, I suppose. It's a gazetted road that runs through properties, lots of gates to go through. So lots of opening and closing happening. But the countryside was really alive. It's like they've had, you know, we talk about drought in Australia lately. This area must have escaped a lot of that. Spoke to one farmer and he said that obviously they're below where they'd normally be with rainfall, but they've had enough to keep everything going because the hills were green, they were rolling. It was very pretty to drive through, and lots of forest as well. It was, you know, a really good first day of filming.
I tell you what, it's a lovely feeling rocking along through the paddocks. You know, cows, trees. It reminds me of when I was a young bloke on the farm. It just had that full-on farm feeling, mostly because it was a farm. But the country was beautiful, and everywhere else in Australia has been a little bit dry and dusty lately, but not that place. That was lovely. This must be Bowman's track, eh, Gleno?
Mate, good one to start off on, isn't it? Beautiful scenery.
Oh, this is fantastic. It's and not well travelled at all. Obviously not many people know about this one.
No, a little bit scrabbly coming through there. Bit of rain lately. There's sort of green shoots happening everywhere. Looks like it's been burnt out sort of last year or earlier this year.
Yeah, probably stimulated some growth. This, I'm wondering, mate, this could be an old coach road or something by the shape of it, because it's very flat, you know, like no farm track would look like this.
Yeah, we came through a few farming communities on the way through. It'd be interesting to see where it takes us out.
So what are you running, 25 or 20? What do you got in your tyres now?
Oh, I just dumped them to 24, just take the edge off.
Beautiful, yeah, me too. And it's just made all the difference here. Just soak up the bumps, there's a few sharp rocks.
Yeah, it's not a place you want to go changing tyres, is it?
No, thank you.
We travelled a lot of low-lying ground there for quite a while. Upper Rochelle Road it was called. And it just meandered along the creek, you know, and we're finding in certain places that the creek was running a little bit, the water was clear, it was fresh, it was very cold, but it's just nice. It's like camp heaven. Anywhere along there, just nice green grass, tall trees, and there was an abundance of different fauna, different trees. You have pine, you have ferns, the whole lot was there. It was, you know, to come down here and spend a couple of days just changing campsites along the river, beautiful.
Oh, how beautiful is this, Gleno?
Mate, I tell you, I did not expect to see this.
No. You think you're in another country, it's all green and lush, gum trees, a few willow trees in there too. Could be anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm quite accustomed to going to Ireland, and this is sort of the flowing fields and the green grass. It's got a nice feel to it, just with a couple of Aussie trees. My heritage is Irish, so I've spent a lot of time there, and I've travelled a lot over there. And the countryside is just so lush and green and beautiful, and it's just like alive. This countryside reminded me of it, because there was no sharp peaks. It was just nice rolling green grass hills. All the trees were alive. The creeks had water in them. It was, you know, it's like, I won't call Ireland home because I've lived in Australia all my life, but it felt cool. It just sort of made me think about being back there.
Upper Rochelle, ding, 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 ding. Oh, squeal like a pig. That was hillbilly country, and it felt great. The funny thing was, I noticed that Gleno was right at home there. I'm wondering about that. Yeah, well, if you start doing Celtic dancing, mate, I'm leaving.
I'll blow my own whistle. Well, this is starting to get a little bit interesting, mate.
Yeah, I reckon it's climbing real quick. Yeah, I don't know what to expect here. It just seems to get steeper and steeper. I'm in low range already.
Yeah, mate, I've selected the old L, and interesting, we're right now at 635 metres.
See, there's the odd big stump on the way through here. It must have been logged at some stage big time.
I've got one. Hear that stick? Yeah, it's got a stick. I'm just going to reverse up a little bit. Dislodge the stick. Stick dislodged.
We were just climbing straight up, weaving our way around. We must have gone up about 400 or 500 metres, I reckon. And then bang, whatever comes up's got to go down. Fortunately, we've got brakes because we needed them big time. Wow, that was cool. The overwhelming feeling was that here we are in New South Wales in the Victorian high country, because it's New South Wales' high country, and I didn't even know about that side of it. I've been through on that road, but not that particular road, and certainly not up those hills. So it was just, once again, so good to find something new and different in a place you thought you knew. Well, we've got to go through the dingo fence, and this is the Tamworth side of the Barrington National Park, Barrington Tops National Park. Although the sign over there says it's Stewart's Brook State Forest. But hey, this is a National Park gate. Australia's like that, eh? It's like a big pack of cards that just unfolds, and you think you've got a full hand, and then you suddenly realise there's another set of cards there. It's just amazing.
After a great night's sleep, we hit the Barrington top tracks again. I have a strange feeling that John's in a walking mood this morning.
Thunderbolts lookout.
What's that bloke's name?
Fred Ward.
Fred Ward.
Yeah. He's buried up behind Uralla, and there's about at least 7 Thunderbolts lookouts that I know of.
I've been to a few of them. I think he's a bit of a superhero, this bloke.
Oh, he got around. Funny thing is, I think this one would have something to do with his escape from prison trip. Because at one stage,
He's one of them.
he got off Cockatoo Island down in Sydney. He swam over with his Aboriginal mistress, gave him a bit of a hand to escape. And then they trekked all the way up through the Barringtons, which would have been just solid bush. So they really, you know, he was a good bushman. The guy was a great bushman. And he had a lot of local help too, you know. And they got all the way back to the New England tablelands, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. I mean, it takes us a few days to do it in a 4-wheel drive on a track. But,
and I'm going to complain about a 400-metre return trip. No, I'm fit these days.
Yeah, I know, mate. Yeah, righto. I think we should go and have a look.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't mind betting if this is on the edge of the Barringtons, we're going to see for a long way.
Thunderbolts lookout number 10. Let's
Number
go.
10.
Isn't it amazing that Thunderbolt can make it through this thick forest to get to here?
You know why? Like, here's the thing, okay? And no one really makes much of this, but he had an Aboriginal girlfriend, okay? And every time an explorer or a pioneer or an escaped convict got friendly with Aboriginals, they survived. Because the Aboriginals were a very friendly people who, you know, on the whole, they only ever reacted to bad treatment. You know what I mean? And so, like Burke, look at Burke, you know? He actually shot at Aboriginals who were bringing fish to him because they could see he was starving at the waterhole. And they took off, and the day later, he realised, maybe I shouldn't have done that. They were trying to feed me, you know? And Thunderbolt, he knew it. So I guess there's the rub, and maybe that's what we need in this day and age too. A little bit more connection with the original people.
Mate, what about the Barrington, eh? Of new land discovered for Gleno. Beautiful.
It really is New South Wales' high country, I reckon.
Yeah, you can imagine the pioneers back in the day sort of trudging through there. It's nice and thick. Wouldn't have been easy going.
That must be why they cut down a few trees on the way through. But boy, isn't there a lot of trees in there?
Certainly was, and look, I can imagine just people coming out here for a long weekend and things like that. It's not far out of town, really.
No, not at all. Beautiful. The strangest thing about travelling, people always say, geez, Roothy, you must have seen heaps of Australia, you know, you spent most of your life travelling it. Well, guess what? Every time we go on a trip, I'm finding something new, something different. And every track seems to lead to another bunch of alternatives. And mentally, you're sort of clocking them away going, hey, next time I come here, I'm going to go that way instead of this way. See what else is up there. Because the country keeps changing so rapidly, and there's so many beautiful little pockets that are yet to be discovered. I guess I could be doing this for another 100 years at this rate. I thought I knew this area, Glenn. I mean, I've done the bucket road heaps of times, the bucket's way, but this is a whole new version of Gloucester. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm loving it, absolutely loving it. How was that coming across that bridge? And there's flowing water underneath. It was clear, crystal clear.
Oh, it's so nice to see a river in flow at the moment. It's just dry everywhere else. And that looked fantastic too.
Absolutely. Where there's water, there's life. The drive, the bridges, the nice dirt roads, from the Gloucester to the Manning. It's like they're only used for people who live out there. They're well maintained. Like I said, it's just a beautiful countryside, and it just meanders through the rolling hills. There's creeks on both sides. You can see why the cows are super fat and healthy out there. Everything's alive. It's beautiful to see that this area hasn't really been affected by this drought.
It's funny, isn't it? I thought I knew Gloucester pretty well because at one stage I worked in Dungog, but once again, it's that thing about Australia constantly unfolding. I'd never been up that road. I had no idea that the Manning River ran through that valley, and it was just fantastic. It was a whole new look at the country again. But I guess the amazing thing once again was here we have really good rural land that was just dry. It was so dry it wasn't funny, and yet the river had heaps of water in it. So, you know it's happening somewhere. It's raining somewhere, just not there. But yeah, lovely country.
Look, we've got some big mountains coming up too. I think we might be in for a bit of action.
Yeah, and if those clouds keep coming over, that could change it up a little bit for us too.
Oh, well, that just means fun.
Well, that's what we're about.
Best thing about getting stuck is finding somewhere new.
Yeah, instead of dust them up, we'll mud them up.
Oh, coming down to the Selves here, Gleno. You've been here before?
Many years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty full on. It can be anyway. It's there's some great tracks in here, but there's also a whole lot of history and everything else. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I remember there's a classic camp spot down here too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? You know, like, it's hard enough for us to come in now in a truck on a track, and yet the pioneers got their machinery and everything in here.
Yeah, hard labour, eh? It, you think back to how they would have done it, it sort of makes us look pretty lazy.
I reckon they probably had a bit more time to play with too. That seems to be the trick, I think, but you're right.
I've been to the Selves before, a few times, but every time's a little bit different because it kind of depends on whether it's rained, whether it's dry, what's going on there, because it's a tight and twisty little track. It's kind of weird the way it starts out a whole lot better than it winds up, you know? It's one of those tracks where you could nose down it in your Hyundai Terracan and think, no problems at all, Marjorie. And then you get about 3/4 of the way down and all of a sudden you can't turn around, you can't do anything else, you've got to keep going that way, and it's getting desperately tight, twisty, muddy and slippery.
No, I've been here before in previous episodes that I've filmed, but I'd never towed, particularly like something like the Zone, the Expedition, so I knew it was going to be a challenge.
You know what, the truly amazing thing about the Selves, apart from the history, apart from the gold that's obviously still down there, was the way Gleno managed to wheel that Zone van through there.
Look, I'm sure other people have towed camper trails down there before, but certainly not a Zone with the height of it. It's not that high, but you've got to watch out for the low-hanging branches. It was tough going. I wouldn't say it was dangerous, but it was just slow and a lot of concentration needed. It was going to be like slow, and the mind was, I was super thirsty at the end of it, put it that way.
I mean, that was insane. I got out and spotted him a few times. He didn't even ask for it. And I know why, because he'd already worked out the dimensions and how he was going to do it. There was one stage where he had about maybe 1/4 of an inch on one side, and that was after he tilted the suspension in the zone to pull the awning away from the rocks on one side. And I'm not kidding, if he'd been 1/4 of an inch further that way, that van could have just slid off the edge into the creek. That guy is, without a doubt, the best man on a wheel I've ever driven with in all my years of four-wheel driving.
Oh, it was a good drive. It was a good drive.
Oh. Well done, mate.
That was pretty cool,
Insane. That's insane. Oh, well done. I don't think anyone's ever bought a caravan or a cross,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, crossover in here.
That's called threading the needle, isn't it? Oh, you got the Hilton over there.
Oh, yeah.
When we got to the end, it was so worth it with the Hilton there, where Jono stayed. And I stayed in the Zone Royale. Oh, look, and someone's put some plywood there.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll replace that tomorrow. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, good this joint. Oh, that's good, it's still standing, isn't it?
But there's a friendliness about this, isn't there?
Yeah.
Righto, I'm going to set my swag up and have a beer.
Great place, great campsite. We all celebrated that night.
Okay, tonight it's really cold, and so I'm going to cook up something really special because we've got a really good fire going on over here, and this is the ideal time to do pepper steak pumpkin. So we haven't got Queensland Blues, which is the ideal pumpkin for this, but it doesn't really matter because we've got pumpkin anyway. The whole trick to this is to cut the pumpkin so it's a bit like a lid. Now that's our lid. Just cut a little bit off that. Once you've cut the lid off the pumpkin, you sort of lift with this hollow bit, of which most of it is seeds and soft stuff. So we want to get rid of that. Takes a little bit of time, but it's worth the effort, it really is. And then we scoop out the middle. There we go. The trick to this is to try and get the pumpkin sort of hollowed out in a bell shape inside, okay? And if you look at that, you can see it's already getting that way, and I've barely started. Now, see that? That's a pumpkin that's been hollowed out. One of the beautiful things about cooking stuff in a pumpkin is that you can get it way overcooked and it'll still be perfect. But we're going to try and get it right tonight. Now, the big trick here is to cook the ingredients before they go into the pumpkin. So in this case, we start with a bunch of olive oil and some onions, garlic. Now, normally I would have bought my steak at the butcher's shop. We didn't have that option on this trip. So I've got a whole lot of steak chopped up, courtesy of an IGA. In it goes. And I'm going to add some pork mince. What else goes into this? My old favourite, oyster sauce. So there it goes. Lots of that. And because this is pepper steak, we need to add some pepper. Lots of pepper. This is something that our photographer Muzz put me onto. It's called cock sauce. Hold back on the laughter there. This stuff is really good. It's really hot. We'll put a fair bit of that in. That should do. And of course, you got to put some honey in. Now make sure you get real honey, okay? And finally, see that? Royal Flying Doctor Service. You know what that means? That means that it could be you in the bush who needs the Flying Doctor. As a kid, I needed the Flying Doctor just once, but it saved my life. And they've been my favourite charity ever since. I'm putting a couple of tablespoons of Gravox into a whole cupful of Royal Flying Doctor Service water, and that's going to make our sauce. It'll be a nice thick sauce. Now, once we've got all that happening, we just need it to cook. So I'm just going to let it sit here with the lid on. So that's our ingredients. That's what's going to fill the pumpkin. and it's going to be magnificent. So here we are. We've cooked up our beef and pork mince mix, and now it's time to fill up the pumpkins. And what you've got to realise with this, you know, like a lot of people think anything to do with alfoil cooked in a fire is going to be hard, but it's not. Not given the fact that pumpkins are so big, there's an awful lot of room for error. That's the only way to put it. I'll get it in there. We get the lid on, make sure it fits, and then it's as simple as wrapping it up. Now, I'm always asked how many layers of alfoil should you use? And the reality is that 3 is a really good number. I don't know why, it's just, maybe it's my lucky number, going end to end, like that. Hey Glenn, you want to grab this one? All right, here we go. Here we are at the fire, easy. Only problem is, to do this, you've got to move the fire because you need the coals. That's easy enough. Gleno, bring us over a pumpkin, mate.
Get my pumpkins.
You got your pumpkins. Lay them right there, top up.
Righto.
You want a hand?
No, all good.
All right.
There's a bit warm in there.
Look at that. Oh, well done, mate.
How long you reckon?
Oh, the way this fire's going, mate, half an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit longer, maybe 40 minutes.
Some heat in there.
There's some heat in there, eh? The whole trick is to cover it with red hot coals. I haven't finished. I'm going to rebuild the fire. I'm going to shovel more coals over the top of it. But I think we've got time for another drink, then.
Okay, I'm orange. One more bottle each.
Here we are, roughly 40 minutes later. Let's see what happened. Oh, that one's perfect. Oh, look at that. Something happened to the lid. Let's see how this one goes. Pepper pumpkin. You can tell straight away, it's black on the outside, which is how it should be. How's that, mate?
You're not going to get too many words out of me. The old Roothy special pepper steak pumpkin. Right? He's done the pumpkin recipe before, but the filling this time was like a steak, 1,000 sauces that John makes up, and you know, his cooking, it never fails to produce the goods. I ate the whole lot and scooped out all the nice pumpkin in between. That's a recipe that I've used myself. It was put out there, Gleno, did you want to go for a swim in the creek? Bear in mind, it was 3 degrees that morning.
Yeah, what a great big wuss. And Gleno goes, I'm not going there. I personally reckon he was a bit hungover, because I know I was.
I declined the offer. I started cleaning up camp. Roothy, I owe him. The balance sheet is a little bit out. He went and did it.
But guess what? That ice cold water snapped me back into life like you wouldn't believe. I don't know, I had a whole new lease on life. I kind of get it now. I can see why people jump out of hot saunas and into the snow, you know. Next time, it's going to be a pink koala suit for Gleno, all right? As soon as we find something really awkward, pink koala suit, bag of Maltesers, and we're going to chuck him in. Oh, that was a nice camp last night, mate.
Mate, glorious campsite. You had the Hilton, I had the Zone Royale.
I must admit, I was really comfortable in the Darcy last night. Like, I don't know why. Maybe I just got the angle right, the temperature was right. And the Cells is just such a peaceful place.
Oh, magic down there. It's sort of, when I got there, you just feel the history. Like, people working around there in that little hut, things like that. Good trip in there. It was glorious.
Yeah, I reckon that was, we're really not that far away from civilization, but gee, it would have been a long old haul in the old days.
Oh yeah. Look, I love hearing and feeling the history about the place. But maybe, John, I was mixing your drinks last night. Maybe that's added to your good sleep.
oh, look, mate, there's no doubt about that at all. Good old Dr. Jamison.
Dr. Jammy. Right, mate, let's hightail it out of here, eh? On to the next one.
Yep, we're heading for Coffs.
Bit of advice when towing. Never be in a hurry. It's not fun when you get into camp if you've got a broken vehicle or trailer. And don't forget that the tow vehicle goes, probably got twice as much strain on it. A lot of people that'll fly through the bush and, bounce their suspension around and put extra stress on their tyres and drive line. That's not my style. I'd rather, take that extra bit of time, and it's a key ingredient. We all want to get home, right? Look after your equipment. Don't rush. Patience. And if you feel yourself getting complacent, start going, hitting a few things or not going on your line properly, pull over. Stretch your legs. Have water. Get your head back in the game. Can't stress that enough. Mission accomplished. When we left the campground, it was only like 200, 300 metres after we left there, we come across a mine.
Well, we're down in the cells, and this is one of the deep shaft mines, just come straight off the edge of the cliff here. And they've been looking for gold. You can tell they've traced a little bit of quartz and come through. There's bits of quartz trace all the way through here, so there might have been a bit of gold in here. Certainly by the amount of work they did. There's a direct drive straight above us here, which is not a great place to stand. Not the least being it's full of bats, but you really do want a helmet for this kind of country because rocks can fall a long way. And there's a rumour attached to this gate, which we've heard, which is that at one stage they used to shut this gate to keep the workers in, and the workers were Chinamen. And so this would have been pre-First World War, maybe. But I don't really believe it unless the gate's been replaced. And the main reason is because this is stick welding, and that's traces of gal paint, which at the earliest is going to be like 1960s or something. And it would make sense, given the amount of work that's been done further down there, that someone's found gold and wanted to protect their assets, maybe they're coming back later, or alternatively, they've actually been safety minded enough to block off that bit of the workings, because it is a bit crumbly and there's a whole lot of action going on. And what happens is when you get things like this and shafts running off to the sides, you get a lot of air movement, especially with the bats stirring it up, and the earth tends to dry out and the rocks start to fall. Now, normally they fall at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's probably why this grid is here. Wow, a lot of hard work, I'll tell you that. But you can see that little line of quartz all the way through there? That's what they've been following. And there's a rift in the earth here, and wherever you get a rift, you've got a chance of it throwing off some gold. That was always the theory.
This mine must have been done by a tall fella, because I could walk in there, because most mines are quite short. This was probably nearly 6.5 foot tall, I'd say. Lots of bats in there, stunk a little bit, but man, when you walk in that thing, you just really appreciate what people 80, 100, 120 years ago did.
I guess walking up to that tunnel, a 100-year-old rail tunnel in the middle of the Aussie bush, to my mind, that's as exciting as walking through the desert and finding a pyramid or something, because this is our history, and it's our pioneers that built that. And so it brings back every feeling I've got about loving the bush. You can imagine guys in bush camps, you know, feeding themselves off the land, all that kind of stuff, working so hard to build that tunnel. And it's still there. It'll be there forever.
Oh, look at them. Look at the cluster of bats.
Oh, yeah.
Every time you go underground, if you're an old miner, there's a whole stack of bells ring much the same way, you know? Like, there's a stillness about underground. It's as still as death itself, it really is. The air doesn't move a lot as a rule when you're underground, so it's always much the same, you know? It doesn't matter whether it's opal mines or coal mines or gold mines. It's a very, very similar feeling. This was a dry mine, which is kind of nice. You don't have water dripping on your head.
When we were walking through the mine, John, he found traces, a line of gold.
See this line? You look, it's barely visible. That's what they've followed.
Oh, it actually looks wet, but it's not. It's speckling.
Yeah.
So that was it. Back to the trucks, get the pans out, get the shovels out.
I can't go anywhere without a gold pan. I mean, let's face it, gold's what made this country, and there's still plenty of it left. And we couldn't, with all these mine shafts around, Gleno and I just had to have a bit of a go.
When you see that little bit of gold, it's not, let's just do it once. It's like, I had to drag him away. We would have been there for days.
Well, yeah, okay, look, I can't help it. I've got mining in my blood, and once you get a taste for gold, or opal, or anything else for that matter, it's really hard to resist. I guess I'm not a gambler, but I kind of figure it'd be much the same thing, you know? Like, people go and have a bit of a flutter on the horses, and they get a little bit of they have a tiny win, and they just got to keep on going, you know? Well, I'm a bit like that with gold. If I think I'm onto something, I just want to stay there. And it can take an awful lot to rip me away from it, to be honest, because it's a strange thing, but I don't think I'm alone in feeling it. It's very, very hard to find many things where you can literally get rich picking stuff up off the ground. It's a lovely feeling.
Any specklies in there, mate?
Oh, mate, there's the tiny, weeniest little bit of trace. I think nothing another 6 months we should be able to afford a beer.
Yeah, no worries. This is exciting. We're actually west of Coffs Harbour. It's been raining, a couple of inches of rain last night, so it's all going to be slip and slide. Left the zone back at the camp, do a bit of a rest today. But we're chasing the old, I think it's the Dorrigo railway line. There's some tunnels out here. This is an exciting bit of history down here. I'm going to go down to 18 on here, because this is clay. This is wet 'em up, or mud 'em up. No dust today.
Look, I love my four-wheel driving, you know that, but they're probably for me the most exciting thing on earth is clay hills with lots of ruts and a fair bit of rain. I guess part of the fascination is because it doesn't matter how many times I do it, there's always a different situation and a different way of handling it. And I've got to be honest, I love the feeling of going sideways in the mud.
Whoa! Track up to the Dorrigo railway line, the tunnels. We had rain. I left the zone back at camp. I thought we'd do a bit of a recce first because we wanted to camp along there somewhere. Look, I've done Coffs Harbour plenty of times, and I know once you break the crust, when it's wet particularly, it's clay under there. It can be treacherous. The first couple of 100 metres we got in there, it was slip and slide, and I guarantee we would have had a trailer hanging off the side.
Whoa! Hey, this has started out real slippery already, Gleno.
Yeah, mate. I think airing down was a wise choice. It's going to be exciting through here though, eh?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to this. If we can find, you know, some of the old traces of the original railway, that's just going to add to the excitement. There's nothing like four-wheel driving for a purpose.
Absolutely. You know, I can't wait to see these tunnels that they speak of. It's magical history.
Hello!
You've got to think about this as a typical government project. You know, started 1910, they shut the trains down 1970, cost an absolute fortune, never made any money, never really achieved what it was supposed to achieve. But what we have here is an example of workmanship. I mean, look at the pride that the guys who built this tunnel put into it, you know? The same shape all the way through. No one's ever going to see this except us. And yet it's beautiful. It really is. So it was probably after the First World War that they were knocking this up. And you can see that they've used drills down to split the rocks because they didn't want to blast this bit because it would have loosened up all the rock. They would have used drills through there. It's really long, it's a perfect bend. It's just a beautiful bit of engineering.
It's an engineering marvel.
It is, isn't it?
The tracks meander through this bush, and obviously on the maps you can see the railway line. So we're just zooming in and we come across timber tops.
Up here at Timbertop, we're in another part of the Great Dividing Range. Now, if you look at a map of Australia, you'll see that all the way up the east coast, from right down the bottom, right the way through to Cape York, where it tends to die out a little bit, but there's still a ridge all the way through. That's the Great Dividing Range. And the Great Dividing Range is absolutely splendid in terms of what it represents to Australia. As much as anything, if it wasn't for the Great Dividing Range, we wouldn't have all this eastern coastal rain forest area. We wouldn't have had all the timber. It's the mountains that kick off the rain, picks it up from the coast and drops it, which is why so much of Western Australia, where there isn't a Great Dividing Range, is kind of flat and just ends in the sea, and it can be dry right up to the sea, just like the Gulf is. But the fascinating thing, I think, about the Great Dividing Range is that originally, a long, long time ago, you know, several climate changes ago, there used to be one great big continent on planet Earth. And then it just sort of broke apart. Now, I don't know why it broke apart, I'm not sure anyone does, but if you look, you can see how Australia used to fit in to the Americas, how New Guinea, Tasmania, everything else. It's as if the whole place has expanded. What does this mean to you? Well, anywhere along the Great Dividing Range is going to be awesome four-wheel drive country. Great for motorcycling, wonderful for people who just love the outdoors. And Mother Nature, well, she never stopped doing her thing.
So it's been 47 years since this was in operation, right? Well, since they shut it down.
Yeah. All of this would have been cleared. We had 3 railway tracks here, and look at this. It's all come back.
Mother Nature is bigger than anyone's thoughts. Anyone telling us what to do, it just...
She just does whatever she wants. Yeah, we're nothing. We're just nothing in the scheme of things. As far as I'm concerned, the whole idea of DustemUp is to go exploring new tracks, okay? So we've got all the iconic ones, we'll do them too, but we'll do them different. And at the end of the day, I guess here I am doing something that I've been doing for over 30 years professionally, still finding new places. I guess one of the other things we're doing too, by involving the vans and the camper trailers, we're kind of making it more accessible to people who travel that way, because most people do these days. You know, 8 out of 10 families go camping with a camper trailer. So here we are doing what everyone else does, finding new places to do it.
Feeling in control. Has my side profile for my manly stature.
feature, something that holds my glasses, and it doesn't work very well. I don't think 40 series and features go together.
Just tell them to hold up, mate, and we'll get in front.
Thanks guys, if you get a chance, can you find somewhere to pull up so we can get around?
Well, let these guys have a go.
What are they doing?
Yeah.
Roll it. To be, mate. Hit it.
Alright, well tonight it's really cold. Where's number one camera?
Yeah. Yep. Start again.
Okay, tonight it's really cold.
That was tight through there. Come on, John. Get in the water.
Oh my god. I hope you got everything you want, Coxie, because this is as far as I'm going.
Maybe dip your head under, mate.
I hate to be. This is too cold. That's really cold.
You going to wash your armpits?
No.
Tell us how good it feels, John.
Hey?
Now tell us how good it feels.
Feel great, especially now. It is so fresh. And by fresh I mean fresh and cold. Beautiful. What a way to wake up. Geez, I tell you what, if I had $1 for every time I've done this, I'd probably go and restore another couple of old Toyotas.
Jono, can I just get you to kind of point out something to Glenn?
Yeah. Look at that valley there, mate. Look. Coxie would be there in a rash.
Actually, there is a little bald spot right in the middle.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
And it looks. Oh. Mother Nature.
There's one for lip readers.